Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today we have an exciting topic that I think will really help you understand your own English journey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, your co-host. We're so happy to have you here with us. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a very important question. What is your English level?
Yes, exactly. Many English learners often wonder, am I a beginner, intermediate, or advanced? But sometimes it's not easy to know where you stand.
That's true. And knowing your English level is really important. It helps you set the right goals, choose the best learning materials, and also measure your progress.
Right. If you know your level, you can focus on what you need most. For example, if you're a beginner, you'll focus on building basic vocabulary and simple grammar. If you're advanced, you'll focus more on fluency and expression.
In this episode, we'll explore the different English levels step by step, from beginner to advanced. We'll also share examples, tips, and even a quick routine you can use every day to keep improving.
So, stay with us until the end. You might even discover what your own English level is today.
That's exciting. Okay, let's get started. First, let's answer the question, what does English level really mean?
So, Julia, let's start with a simple question. What does English level actually mean?
Good question, Jason. An English level is basically a way to describe how well someone can use the language. It's about what you can do in listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Exactly. It's not only about grammar or vocabulary, but how you use English in real life. For example, can you introduce yourself? Can you order food in a restaurant? Can you explain your opinion in detail? Those abilities show your level.
Right? And it's helpful because when you know your level, you can find the right materials. For example, a beginner might start with simple dialogues, while an advanced learner might read newspapers or watch movies without subtitles.
That makes sense. So, basically, your level tells you what kind of English you can use comfortably.
Yes, and I think it's also important to say that your level can be different in different skills. For example, you might be good at listening, but speaking is harder. Or maybe your reading is strong, but writing is still a challenge.
I love that point. Listeners, think about yourself. Maybe you can understand a lot when you watch English videos, but speaking feels difficult. That doesn't mean you're stuck. It just means each skill can be at a slightly different level.
Exactly. So when we say your English level, we're really talking about your overall ability to use the language in everyday life.
And that's what we'll explore in today's episode. Beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels, and how to know where you fit.
Perfect. And to make it clear for everyone, let's now look at the most common way English levels are explained around the world.
Now that we know what English level means, let's talk about the most common system used around the world. It's called the CEFR, which stands for Common European Framework of Reference for Languages.
That sounds a little complicated, but don't worry. The CEFR is just a way to describe your English level using 6 main categories: a 1, a 2, B1, B2, C1, and C2.
Exactly. Think of them as steps on a ladder. The A levels are beginners, the B levels are intermediate, and the C levels are advanced.
Let's give some simple examples so our listeners can understand. If you're at A1, you can do very basic things, like introduce yourself, say hello, or ask simple questions such as, "Where is the bus station?"
Yes, and at A2, you can talk about familiar topics, like your family, your daily routine, or ordering food at a restaurant. You can communicate, but still in a simple way.
Moving up to B1, this is where learners can talk about more topics like hobbies, travel, or even share simple opinions. You can manage conversations, but sometimes with mistakes.
At B2, you are more independent. You can understand most conversations, join discussions, and even watch movies or read articles without too much difficulty.
Then we have C1, which means Advanced English. At this level, you can express complex ideas, join academic or professional discussions, and speak almost fluently.
And finally, C2 is the highest level. That's like being almost a native speaker. You can understand almost everything, even jokes, idioms, or very deep conversations.
So to summarize, A1 and A2 equals beginner B1 and B2 equals intermediate C1 and C2 equals advanced.
Exactly. And listeners, as you hear us describe these levels, try to imagine where you fit. Do you feel more comfortable with beginner skills, intermediate, or advanced?
Yes. This will help you follow along in the next sections, where we'll break down each level with examples from daily life.
All right, let's start with the beginner levels, A1 and A2. These are the first steps when you begin learning English.
Yes. At A1, you can use very simple words and phrases. You can introduce yourself, say hello, and ask basic questions. For example, I might say, "Hello, my name is Julia. I am from Canada. What is your name?"
And if I'm also at A1, I could reply, "My name is Jason. I am from the United States." Very short and simple, right?
Exactly. At this level, learners can also talk about numbers, colors, days of the week, and basic needs like, "I want water," or "Where is the bathroom?"
Now, at A2, learners can do a little more. They can talk about daily life, like their family, work, or hobbies. For example, Julia, why don't we role-play a short A2 conversation?
Sure, I'll start. What do you usually do on weekends, Jason?
On weekends, I play football with my friends. Sometimes I watch movies. What about you?
I usually go shopping or meet my family. I also like cooking at home.
See? That's A2. Still simple, but a bit longer sentences. And you can share small details.
Right. But beginners at A1 and A2 often make mistakes, and that's okay. The goal is to communicate basic ideas, not to be perfect.
Absolutely. So, if you're listening and you can do these simple things, introduce yourself, ask about someone's family, or talk about your weekend, you're probably at the beginner level.
And remember, being a beginner is not a bad thing. It's the starting point for everyone. We all begin somewhere, and moving from A1 to A2 is already big progress.
Well said. Now that we understand beginners, let's move up and see what the intermediate levels, B1 and B2, look like. Now let's move to the intermediate levels, B1 and B2. This is where many English learners are, and it's an exciting stage.
Yes, at B1, learners can handle most everyday conversations. They can talk about travel, hobbies, and even share their opinions. For example, I could say, "Last year I traveled to Italy. The food was amazing, and I loved the history."
And at B1, I could reply with my own story. "That sounds great. I went to Spain, and I really enjoyed the beaches. The people were very friendly."
Exactly. At this stage, you can connect ideas, tell stories, and explain experiences, even if you make some mistakes.
Now, B2 is a step higher. Learners at B2 can join longer discussions, understand more details, and even argue their opinions politely. For example, Julia, let's try a quick B2 conversation.
Sure. I think reading books is better than watching movies because it helps you imagine more.
That's interesting, but I prefer movies. They are faster, and I can see the characters' emotions.
See? At B2, the conversation is deeper. You can express reasons, compare ideas, and respond naturally.
Yes. Listeners, if you can tell stories, give opinions, and talk about different topics in English, you're probably at the intermediate level, B1 or B2.
And remember, this stage is very important because it's where you start to feel real confidence using English in daily life.
Exactly. Next, we'll move to the highest levels, C1 and C2, Advanced English. All right, now let's talk about the highest levels of English, C1 and C2. These are the advanced stages.
Yes, at C1, learners can use English very comfortably. They can join professional or academic discussions, understand complex topics, and express themselves clearly. For example, I might say technology has changed the way we communicate, and while it brings many benefits, it also creates challenges for privacy and mental health.
That's a great example. At C1, you can explain ideas with details, give reasons, and sound very natural.
Now, C2 is even higher. It's almost like a native speaker. At this level, you can understand jokes, idioms, and cultural references. You can also switch between formal and informal English easily.
For instance, at C2, someone might discuss very abstract topics, like philosophy or politics, and express opinions with nuance. Example: democracy works best when citizens are educated and actively participate in discussions rather than staying passive.
Exactly. At C2, English isn't just a tool. It feels like part of you. You can communicate almost anything in any situation.
But let's be clear, Julia, not everyone needs to reach C2. For most people, B2 or C1 is already more than enough for work, study, and travel.
That's so true. So listeners, if you can follow movies, join deep conversations, and express complex ideas, you're probably at the advanced level.
Well said. Now, let's talk about how you can actually test your English level. So, Julia, now that we've explained all the levels, the big question is, how can someone actually test their English level?
Good question. There are a few ways. The most formal way is through international exams like IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge English tests. These exams give you an official certificate and a clear level.
Right. But of course, not everyone wants to take a big exam. There are also many free online placement tests where you answer questions, and they estimate your level.
Yes, and another simple way is to test yourself in real life. For example, try watching a short English video without subtitles. If you understand most of it, you might be at an intermediate or advanced level. If it feels very difficult, maybe you're at beginner or lower intermediate.
That's a smart idea. You can also check by speaking. For example, can you introduce yourself easily? Can you explain your opinion about a topic? If yes, you're probably higher than beginner.
Exactly. Testing doesn't always mean a formal exam. You can test yourself every day by noticing what you can do comfortably in English.
Well said. And in the next part, we'll give some daily life examples that will help you identify your level even more clearly. Okay, Julia, let's give our listeners some real-life situations to help them figure out their level.
Great idea. Let's start with a simple example, ordering food in a restaurant. If you can only say, "Chicken, please," or "I want water," that's probably A1. If you can say, "I'd like a chicken sandwich with no onions, please," that's closer to A2 or B1.
Exactly. Here's another one. Talking about your weekend. If you can only say, "I play football," you're closer to beginner. But if you can say, "On Saturday, I played football with my friends, and then we watched a movie together," that's B1 or B2.
Yes, and here's one more, discussing a serious topic. If you can say, I like books, that's beginner. If you can say, I prefer books over movies because reading helps me imagine and learn more, that's intermediate. But if you can say, books allow me to develop critical thinking, and I believe they provide a deeper understanding compared to visual media, that's advanced.
Perfect examples. So, listeners, think about how you speak in these situations. The way you express yourself can give you a good idea of your English level.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about noticing what you can already do and what you still need to practice.
Well said. Now, let's talk about some common mistakes people make when judging their level. Now, Julia, many learners try to guess their level, but sometimes they make mistakes. Let's talk about that.
Yes, one common mistake is being too hard on yourself. Many learners think, oh, I'm still a beginner, even when they can already have long conversations. They underestimate their ability.
That's true. On the other side, some learners think they're advanced just because they know a lot of words. But being advanced is not just vocabulary. It's also fluency, accuracy, and how well you communicate in different situations.
Exactly. Another mistake is comparing yourself too much with other learners. Maybe your friend speaks faster, but you write better. Everyone has different strengths, so comparing can be misleading.
I love that point. Listeners, instead of comparing with others, compare with your past self. Ask, am I better today than I was 6 months ago? That's the best way to see real progress.
Yes, and one more mistake is focusing only on grammar tests. You might score high on grammar, but if you can't speak confidently, your level may not be as high as you think.
Exactly. So the key is balance. Look at all your skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, when judging your level.
Perfect. Now that we've talked about mistakes, let's move to something more positive. How to move up to the next level.
So, Julia, we've helped listeners identify their English level. Now, the big question, how can someone move up to the next level?
Well, Jason, the key is consistent practice in all 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. For example, listening to podcasts or watching videos in English helps your comprehension.
And speaking regularly is important too. Even short daily conversations like talking to a friend or practicing in front of a mirror can make a huge difference.
Reading is another great way. Start with short articles or books suited to your level. This helps with vocabulary, grammar, and understanding sentence structure.
And finally, writing. Even simple sentences in a journal or chatting in English online can improve your skills. The key is to use English every day, even a little bit.
That's right. And don't forget patience. Moving up takes time, but small steps every day add up to big progress.
Exactly. And in the next part, we'll share a quick daily routine that listeners can use to practice and improve their level. All right, Julia, let's give our listeners a simple daily routine to check and improve their English level.
Sure. Here's a quick plan. First, spend 5 to 10 minutes listening to English, like a short podcast, a song, or a video. Ask yourself, how much did I understand?
Then, spend 5 minutes speaking. You can describe your day, talk about your plans, or even repeat phrases from what you listen to. Notice what's easy and what's hard.
Next, 5 to 10 minutes reading something simple in English, like an article or short story. Check if you understand the main idea and new words.
And finally, 5 minutes writing. Write a few sentences about your day, your opinion, or something you learned. This helps you practice grammar and expression.
That's it. Just 20 to 30 minutes every day can help you see your level clearly and improve step by step.
Simple, short, and very effective. And now, let's wrap up with our key takeaways from today's episode. So, Julia, let's wrap up today's episode with some key takeaways for our listeners.
Absolutely, Jason. First, knowing your English level is very important. It helps you choose the right learning materials, set realistic goals, and measure your progress.
Second, remember that levels are flexible. Your speaking, listening, reading, and writing skills may be different, and that's okay. Focus on improving all areas gradually.
Third, avoid common mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself, don't compare with others, and remember that knowing a lot of words doesn't automatically make you advanced.
And finally, the best way to move up is consistent daily practice. Listen, speak, read, and write every day, even a little bit, and you'll see improvement over time.
Exactly. So whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced learner, there's always a way to grow and improve your English.
That's right. Keep learning, keep practicing, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Well said, Jason. And with that, it's time to say goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the English Learning Podcast. We hope you now have a clearer idea of your English level.
Yes, and remember, every small step counts. Keep practicing and don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are part of learning.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, and leave a comment telling us what your English level is.
That's right. We love hearing from you, and stay tuned for more tips, examples, and practical advice to improve your English every day.
Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.